morning. My name is Susanne Mariga, and I am the Chief Accountant and Chief Profit Advisor here at Mariga CPA. And I am going to be sharing with you a clip from our private Facebook Masterclass group. And it is regarding the lessons learned from the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, as a CPA, I work with hundreds of clients, and so they're across different industries. And so I'm able to see trends before a lot of the market is able to see those. And so today I wanted to share with you some of the lessons that we've learned, some of the trends that we are seeing according to the Paycheck Protection Program to help you in your strategy going forward. Please enjoy this video. If you are interested in joining our Profit First Masterclass, we are hosting a free masterclass on May 18th at noon Eastern Time. It will be every day for that week. And we will be teaching you how to implement Profit First in your business from a strategy standpoint. So I hope that you enjoy our video. The link for our Facebook group is below, and I look forward to hearing from you. Good morning or good afternoon for you guys that are on the East Coast. My name is Susanne Mariga, and I am the Chief Accountant and Chief Profit Advisor here at Mariga CPA. And for those of you that are new to us, welcome to our private Profit First Facebook Masterclass group. We are excited to have you here and excited about the upcoming trainings that we're going to be hosting here. And for those of you guys that are returning, welcome back. Every time we try to make it even better than the time before. But before I begin, I just want to know who's out there in Facebook land. So please go ahead and put your name as well as your location in the chat. And I just want to see who's out there, who's joining us today. So there is a little delay on my end. So I'll wait a second in the chat to see who's joining us today. Hey, Nan, good morning. How are you? And Crystal from San Antonio, welcome. So definitely welcome to our session today. Before I begin though, there are some housekeeping items that I do want to go ahead and cover with us. And first of all, we'll be hosting our Profit First Masterclass starting on May 18th. And usually we host this around noon Eastern time. And we would love for you guys to join us in our masterclass. It's a whole week long, usually an hour per day. And what we're going to cover is really how to implement Profit First in your business. So really, I'm going to be teaching you the ins and outs of how to implement Profit First in your business using the Profit First methodology. And I'm going to challenge you guys that even in the midst of a pandemic, that I want you guys to have your best year ever. And for some of you guys, it's going to be really experiencing things and looking different than what you ever looked like before in your business. And what that might mean for you is being able to pivot in your business to deliver the goods and services in a way that you have not delivered it before, because really the demand has not changed in a lot of areas. And so it's a matter of pivoting in terms of how we will deliver those to others. And for some of you guys, you're going to be entering a completely different industries. You're going to be entering industries that you haven't been in before, because now the demand has shifted into a new area. So definitely embrace this pandemic and embracing those changes that need to happen in order to pivot. And so today, what we're going to talk about is lessons learned from the Paycheck Protection Program. Lessons learned. And these are lessons that we've learned along the way. Now, being a CPA, I often get insights into businesses before the rest of the market does, because we work with a wide variety of business owners, hundreds of them, and they're in different industries. And so we can usually detect the trends before anyone else can detect the trends. And a lot of what I'm going to be reporting to you today are things that I have noticed based upon the trends that we are seeing in our clients surrounding the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, if any of you guys have questions along the way regarding the Paycheck Protection Program, please go ahead and include those in the chat. I will try to get to as many as possible. And then if you can let me know in the chat if I miss any, I will make sure that I circle back to get some of those questions resolved on those ends. So today we're going to talk about lessons learned in the Paycheck Protection Program. So first of all, the Paycheck Protection Program was originated as part of the CARES Act, which stands for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, that was signed into order on March 27th by our President Trump. And this was a huge package. This was a $2.2 trillion package that was signed. And out of this $2.2 trillion, $349 billion was earmarked for COVID-19 relief for small businesses. And it was really allocated in order to really keep the economy going as best as it could. was really the purpose of it. But you guys know how it turned out. $349 billion ran out within 14 days, 14 days. And literally it ran out the day after tax day on April 16th, the money ran out. And you guys heard about the scandal that was involved in that also. One of the things that happened, unfortunately, was, the banks received a percentage of the loan amount. And the percentage varied based upon the size of the loan amount. And this percentage was a processing fee. I'm going to call it a commission because that's pretty much what it was. And so what happened was the larger banks were incentivized to process their larger clients first, the ones that had the higher payroll, right? And so what happened was the smaller businesses that were in line in those larger banks, they were told that, hey, we're processing you an order received. We're going to get to you. We're too busy right now to answer our phones because we were so busy processing applications. But you wait, we care about you. We're going to get to you. But in the meantime, what was really happening was they were putting their larger clients in the front of the line. You got it. And so today, we have these larger clients that were taking advantage of these scandals. You guys heard of the large companies that were publicly traded that were getting these monies. And so literally these small businesses were waiting in line for their chance to get processed, and they were not getting processed because the bigger banks were prioritizing their customers before ahead of time. And it was really an unfortunate thing because what happened was the small businesses really needed the money and they didn't get the money. However, on April 24th, a second tranche was approved. A second tranche was approved that allowed $310 billion to be injected again into the Paycheck Protection Program. And what we're seeing this time is that the larger banks are really trying to right with this, and they're trying to really make good on what they did last time. And so what they're doing now is they are really just it seems that they're processing more and more small business loans. In fact, Chase Bank announced that they processed 220,000 applications and half of them were smaller than $81,000. So it looks like they're trying to do right on the second tranche. What we're seeing is that the bigger banks are, not bigger banks, the bigger clients that were publicly trading, they are actually also trying to do good on this too. And what they're trying to do is return the monies back to the PPP program. Now, unfortunately, because it was already taken out, we're not sure if the money that's going back into the PPP program will be able to be assessed by smaller businesses at this point. And in fact, I'm going to just show you something. I'm going to actually put this onto the Facebook group later on so that you guys can see it. But I want to show you, I'm going to do a quick screen share with you guys just so that you can see what I see here on this Paycheck Protection Program. So this is a report that was put out by the SBA. And it happened, its report was put out right after the money ran out. And what it shows is just kind of a brief synopsis of where the money went for the PPP loan. And so what happened was they issued $1.6 million in loans. And what happened was the $1.6 million in loans was issued, and this totaled $342 billion, and there was 5,000 lenders that participated in this loan. And this is a breakdown by state so that you can see the states that how they received it. And you can see that it's unfortunately that some of the bigger, the states that really needed it were not the ones that got most of it. So like if you look at New Jersey and New York, which are really being hit by COVID-19, you can see that they were definitely not some of the top states that received it. In fact, Texas received most of the money, and Texas is actually reopening right now. Something else that you'll see here is that the smaller businesses, the ones that were applying for $150,000 less, accounted for 74% of the loan count. However, they were only 17% of the amount that was dispersed here. And even more interesting, you can see a breakdown by the different industries. And you can see that construction received most of the loans, and then professional and financial services received the second amount. And you can see how the monies were dispersed by trade. And I'm going to put this into our Facebook group, the link, so that you guys can see it first. But even bigger, I want to point out that this is by lender size. And what you can see here is that the top lender, the biggest lender, they issued 27,000 loans. However, the average loan was $500,000. And so what you're seeing here is that they probably weren't really processing in the order received. They were, again, prioritizing by the size of the loan, which is why we have the issues that we have now with your publicly traded companies, unfortunately being embarrassed and having to give that money back. So I'm going to put this report on the Trello board just to kind of give you that so that you have this information available to you. And now I want to take the chance, because I know we've got some new people that are joining us today, is I want to, and for some of you guys have already been with me, you guys will know some of this, but we'll get to the new material after this. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And what I want to talk about is just some of the SBA lending opportunities that are available, and some of the changes that have happened since the last time that we talked with that, and eventually to help you strategize in that today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. You guys can see my Google right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to sba.gov. And notice I'm going to .gov, not .com. Make sure that when you're applying for money that you're entering the correct website, because there is a lot of fraud that is going on. And I want to make sure you guys are protected from that. And when we're looking at this website here, we're going to go to the funding sources. And one of the things that I do want to show you on there is this EIDL loan, this economic injury disaster loan that was available a few weeks ago, is no longer available. They are no longer accepting applications for the economic injury loan. And it's because of limited appropriations, limited funding. And in fact, if you've already applied for the EIDL loan, we are seeing them disperse the monies that were applied for in the initial tranche. And if you've already submitted an application, they are still continuing to process those. Now, the dollar amount has changed. When we originally went over this, they were saying that $10,000, up to $10,000 of the loan would not have to be repaid. That is still correct, but they are no longer giving out $10,000. What we're seeing is they're giving out $1,000 per employee in a company. So if you have 5 employees, you're going to get $5,000 versus $10,000 that was originally set up. So what we're seeing is that the rules are constantly changing as we go along with this program, is what we're seeing here on that. And I'm going to go back for just a moment here, and I am going to go to the Paycheck Protection Program here. I'm going to move my Facebook for just a second because it's in the way. But if I go to the Paycheck Protection Program, and this is what we're talking about today because the EIDL is no longer available. A second tranche of money was funded on the 24th of April, and it opened up again on Monday, April 27th. And this time they allocated $310 billion to the Paycheck Protection Program. And the purpose of the Paycheck Protection Program is really to be an incentive for small businesses to keep their employees on payroll. And it's done because what they're trying to do is to really ensure that the economy recovers quickly. And by keeping people on payroll, keeping them employed, that when the country opens up over time, that people will be able to jump back into positions that they were already in versus being on unemployment. Because you guys know, once your employee is on unemployment, it's very difficult to take them off of unemployment because they are very comfortable with that. But with the Paycheck Protection Program, what happens is, if you keep your employees on, and all of them on, for an 8-week period, any money that you use for payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, and utilities will be forgiven. Is the point of that. So they are going to forgive this PPP loan if you're able to keep your employees on for 8 weeks. And with that is, you have to be a small business, and that is less than 500 employees. Now, if you have multiple locations, there was a loophole, which was unfortunately taken advantage of. If you have multiple locations and each of them are under 500, you may have an aggregate of more than 500 employees, you're still able to get that PPP loan. But also, if you're a sole proprietor or independent contractor or self-employed, you're able to get that PPP loan also. And so that is really what the PPP loan is. From a high-level summary, you can actually apply for this PPP loan directly through your bank that you already have a relationship with. You can apply for it there. You do not apply for this directly through the SBA. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment and go back to here on here. And so what I want to talk about today is just some of the things that we are seeing with the PPP loan, some of the problems that we're seeing, and really help you guys mobilize to be able to have a strategy of how you're going to go on the way forward. So one of the biggest problems that we saw with the PPP loan was something called cronyism. Yes, cronyism. And what that meant is that the larger banks were literally allowing their larger clients, whether they be SEC publicly traded companies or larger clients by amount of payroll, to jump the line. And meanwhile, the smaller banks were told, hey, we're doing our best, we're processing in the order received, we're sending out emails to you but please don't call us because we're way too busy processing loans. But we're processing first come, first receive because we value you and our relationship, and we're going to take care of you. But what was happening was they were literally putting their bigger clients first in front of them. And so while these small businesses were waiting for a chance to get processed, waiting for a chance to get these PPP loans, they didn't even know that they didn't have a shot at it. And they couldn't go anyplace else to apply because a lot of the banks were telling them that if you do not have a pre-existing banking relationship with us, you're not going to be able to apply. And so what happened was, because these smaller banks were historically taking advantage of the efficiencies that a larger bank offered, their automation, their amenities, they didn't develop these personal banking relationships. So they didn't have anyone to call personally in order to find out the status of their application or get it moving, versus the larger clients did have those relationships. So a lot of the small businesses were locked out of the loan. So that was one of the first problems that we saw with the PPP loan from that standpoint. The second problem that we saw in the PPP loan was the E-Tran system. Now the E-Tran system is the SBA loan system, right? And the SBA loan system, the E-Tran system, was very archaic. I'm talking like not necessarily DOS-based, but it might as well be very archaic. And initially, when the banks were opening up their PPP loan, they were manually entering this information into the E-Tran system. And because of the large volume of loans that were being processed, the E-Tran system continuously kept breaking down. Now imagine trying to process loans and first come, first receive, process them fast, and the system's not even available for you. So this is what our bankers were dealing with. And so later on, the innovation kicked in because when there's a need, someone usually steps up, innovation steps in, and so they designed these things called robotic application processes. And what the robotic application processes allowed one to do was to take the applications that people were entering, the small businesses online, convert that data into a way that the banks could read it, and then feed it into the E-Tran system automatically, so reducing manual entry. And so it happened on opening day when the new money came in on Monday, the E-Tran system said, oh my gosh, these are like tons and tons of applications, and it crashed again. And in fact, it was to the point that they said, okay, don't even submit applications to the robotic application process anymore. We can't handle it. They said it wasn't as accurate. I don't believe that. It's probably their system really couldn't handle it. And so what happened was, the E-Tran system failed again. And so they said, no more taking E-Trans. You can still do API feeds, and you still, of course, manually enter the applications in, but no more robotic feeds. So again, back to slow data entry out there. So if anybody's out there that has an IT business that wants to do programming, this is a tremendous opportunity for you. And I think it might even last you the whole year. So take advantage of it. Other issue that we have found out there is that the rules keep changing. The rules keep changing for the PPP program. The rules that you apply for the PPP program 3 weeks ago is completely different than the rules that apply today. Okay, completely different. For example, we saw with the economic injury disaster loan. Originally, you were told you could get $10,000 advance. When things got tight, they said, okay, we're going to limit to $1,000 per employee that your business has. And again, rules keep changing. On the PPP side, what happened was, they saw these gaping loopholes that these SEC companies were taking advantage of, like the 500 employees per location, having multiple legal entities, that type of thing. And so they said, okay, you must certify that this PPP program is a necessity for your business. That it is a necessity for your business, meaning that you must have this PPP loan in order to continue on with your business. And so in addition to having to certify that, they're now saying that not only must you certify in good faith, but now that you've taken this PPP money, you're now subject to an additional layer of scrutiny. You're subject to an additional layer of scrutiny. And if we find that you could have found another way other than the way the PPP loan, you may be subject to fines. And so again, the rules are constantly changing on the PPP loan. In addition, what we found was a loan, the rule that kept changing was if you would get a loan in excess of $2 million, you could be subject to audit. You could be subject to audit if your loan exceeds $2 million. And so if you guys are in the staffing industry out there, then definitely be careful on that, because I know with staffing industry, you can definitely easily hit a $2 million peak on that. So definitely be careful, because if you're $2 million, you can definitely be subject to being audited. The other thing that we saw that changed in terms of rule was just how you calculate payroll costs. How you calculate payroll costs change. And I am going to do a screen share for just a moment here, just to kind of show you guys something that I see here. And right here, if you guys can see my screen, it's actually line number 16. And this is coming straight, and I'll put the link on Facebook for you guys, but it says Paycheck Protection Loan Program here. And this was actually issued by the U.S. Treasury Department here. And if we go to line number 16 here, one of the things that when you're calculating payroll costs, you must exclude federal taxes that are paid by the employer. So if you were including the employer portion of the payroll taxes, that FICA, that Medicare in there, FUTA, that does not count as part of the payroll cost. So if you were adding those components in there, and this is important because under this PPP provision, in order to get it forgiven, 75% of your loan, 75% of your loan must go towards payroll costs. So if you're inflating your payroll costs from the beginning, and because of this calculation here, you may have some trouble. So you're going to need to think about strategically wise, do I need to bring somebody else in to fulfill this covenant? Do I need to do bonuses? What do I need to do in order to make this covenant happen for you on that standpoint? And so even though the PPP loan allows you to get, to be able to include in payroll cost vacation pay, medical leave or sick leave or allowance or separation, or even healthcare benefits or retirement, make sure that you're not including the employer portion of the federal payroll taxes. In addition, you can include as part of payroll costs your state and local taxes. Also, if you have employees that make over $100,000, even if you as a business owner makes more than $100,000, you need to cap your salary and your calculations at $100,000 on an annualized basis. So hopefully when you get your loan approved and you're in your 8-week forgiveness period here, hopefully that you're in a pay period that has 3 pay periods in a month, right? So hopefully you do that in order to definitely maximize that. So let's talk about best bets going forward. Let's talk about what can you do strategically in order to be able to hedge your bets with the PPP loan on this. So as a CPA, what we were seeing out there was that your smaller banks and your community banks, they were able to process more applications and true representation of small businesses. So one of the things I'm going to show you here is taking a look at the analytics here, just so you guys can see it. So this, I showed this on an earlier screen, but this is a listing of the lenders, right? And this is your biggest lender that processed 27,000 loans, but they were average of $500,000 each, right? So this included probably your publicly traded companies. We'll keep that secret. But down here, your bank number 15, they process 40,000 loans. 40, and the average loan size was $72,000. So definitely, if you were applying for a PPP loan, you really hoped that you were like banking with bank number 15, right? You hope that you were banking with bank number 15 because they were really truly representing the small guys and making sure that they were processing fairly. So again, the bank that you went to really had a determination on if you received the money, because again, the money was allocated from the SBA side, first come, first serve. And literally if the money was gone, you didn't get it. So again, where we saw success with our clients was with the smaller banks, the community banks. So definitely the smaller bank, community banks, if you have not applied, definitely go and look at those. And now another benefit about the smaller banks is, because they were smaller, they had lower volumes to deal with. And we also suspect that they were used to the E-Tran technology. No offense on smaller banks, we suspect that they were used to the E-Tran technology. But even better, what makes a small bank more appealing right now is on the second tranche of money that was approved on April 24th, the money that got released on April 27th, there was a $60 billion set aside that was made just for small banks, banks that had assets of less than $50 billion or less. And this was done because the banks were setting aside money in order to serve underserved communities and small businesses. And that was the reason why the monies were set aside in these smaller banks. Definitely, if you can apply through a smaller bank, if you want to hedge your bets on getting approved, definitely the smaller banks. Also, what we saw yesterday happen was we actually saw the SBA lock down their system. And they told all the banks that only if you are a small bank, are you allowed to apply for the PPP loan right now. So literally they were given 8 hours of private time to be able to process their applications through E-Tran. So again, if you were a larger bank, and it's really bad if you were a small business at a larger bank, right? Because now you've got locked out of these hours, you're waiting for somebody else that has priority now, which is the smaller banks. The smaller banks, it definitely is the way to go and hedge your bets on getting a PPP loan right now, especially when funds are limited, time is limited, and the lines are long. Smaller bank, community bank is where to go on that. And I know in Profit First, one of the things that we encourage you to do, and we're going to talk about more during our masterclass, is we actually encourage you to open a secondary bank account. We call it the no temptation bank account, right? And that's where we have you actually host your monies that are for your tax account and your profit account in a bank account that's separate from your main bank account, preferably a bank that you have to drive to, where it's really inconvenient to draw money out. A bank where technology is terrible, so you can't just do a transfer of funds into your regular account. And right now we're seeing where this was critical, especially for our small businesses, because now they're able to go to that small bank and say, hey, I know somebody here, I have a relationship, I'm already a customer, process my loan. And so for you guys that are implementing Profit First, definitely utilize that small bank relationship. If you have not implemented that, definitely look into implementing that small bank relationship going forward, because I don't know if this is going to happen again in terms of them having another tranche of PPP loans after this in the fall, because they are expecting things to pick up in terms of COVID-19, but so that you can prepare yourself, start building those relationships now. Another thing that we saw success in, and this is very new, is the FinTechs. And the FinTechs are different because FinTechs are not your traditional banking organizations. Your FinTechs are your online banking institutions or financial service institutions. And we saw that with the FinTechs, they were able to process loans quicker because they already had the technology to have clients upload their applications. They already had the technology to be able to process things quickly because they were used to this online underwriting. Now, I'm going to say some names here, and I feel bad for these FinTechs because they're about to get bombarded, but here we go. We saw Cabbage loans turn around quickly on the PPP loans. Now, Cabbage is not an SBA provider, but they are the front face of a bank that they don't want to disclose, but we actually happen to know who it is, but we're not going to disclose that. But it's a small bank. And so they may get some privileges that the small banks are getting. And they were very quick to turn around applications is what we found. PayPal, very quick on the underwriting side to turn things around. Again, their technology is already used to being able to service clients online. And that's why they were super successful with being able to do that quicker. And then QuickBooks, we haven't necessarily seen any turnaround with that, but it's something to look into as it goes, because they did get approved to be able to process PPP loans also. So if you don't have a pre-existing banking relationship at a smaller community bank, definitely consider the FinTechs. Get in line with the FinTechs. You will have to go through the traditional Know Your Customer Act. You'll have to upload copies of your certificate of formation. You're going to have to upload copies of your tax returns. You're going to have to prove that you're a real business again. But again, we're seeing faster turnarounds in your traditional banks, especially the larger banks, just because their technology is more used to these type of processes. So definitely check out the FinTechs. The other thing that we would recommend based on what we're seeing is consider your corporate entity. Consider your corporate entity structure. And what we found was that when folks were applying for the PPP loans, what the lenders were asking for traditionally were copies of the W-3s, so the payroll tax returns, the 940s and 941s, copies of the payroll registers. And we found that our clients that were already S corporations, that already, and the reason why S corporations, because S corporations are required to take what we call a reasonable salary, because they were S corporations, they were already had those compliance items in place. And so literally all we had to do, once we found out what the requirements were, we would just start uploading it to our portal for our clients to go ahead and download. Here's a copy of your 2019 W-3 and their 940 or 941. Here's your register. And they could easily, quickly go into their banks and apply. And because they were used to that. Now, the people that struggled with applying because they didn't have this information were your independent contractors, your single member LLCs, your sole proprietors, and your new businesses. And new business, obviously, because they're new and they have to prove that they really are in existence. But the single member LLCs and the independent contractors, the sole proprietors, they were struggling because they didn't have the payroll tax returns in a lot of cases because they never had to apply. They're not required to run things through payroll. Literally, they get a Schedule C and they pay taxes on their 1040, their personal return. That's how they do it. And literally, because they couldn't provide those payroll tax returns and those payroll registers, they had to now go and get their taxes done. Now, keep in mind, they were starting to apply before taxes were even due. And so they had to suddenly scramble to get themselves together. And so if you're a sole proprietor, if you're an independent contractor, the thing that I would recommend is make sure your books are up to date, because I don't know if a third tranche is going to open up for this, but make sure your books are up to date and your taxes are filed on time. And even better, consider being a more sophisticated entity. Consider filing as an S corporation, getting converted over to an S corporation, because it was a whole lot easier for those S Corps, C Corps to get approved for the PPP loan than for those sole proprietors and independent contractors out there. Let's talk about some things to look out for. Let's talk about red flags. Let's talk about how to protect yourself with the PPP loan on this. One of the things that was out there that you have to be really careful for when you're applying for PPP loans, especially for those that have been burned by applying for those large financial institutions, are be careful for being red flagged for fraud. And what I'm saying here is that a red flag for fraud was when you apply for multiple institutions, they can literally say, because you're applying for multiple institutions for the same EIN number, same business, that there's potential for fraud. And this is hard to say because some of our really, really large clients that were in line at Chase Bank or Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they really got burned because, like I said, they weren't being treated right. The bigger clients were getting in front of them and the money ran out before they got a chance. And they were in situations where they were unable to apply for anyone else because other banks weren't accepting. But now that the second tranche has opened up, now the FinTechs have come in now and are offering PPP loans, as well as some of the smaller community banks are loosening up, that are allowing you to apply even if you don't necessarily have a banking relationship with them. There is a want to go ahead to apply and hedge the risk. And this is really complicated because at the same time, you have got government officials saying, go ahead and apply for multiple locations. Go ahead and apply for multiple locations. And obviously, we've learned in this whole process that there are some banks that are more efficient than others, right? There are some banks more efficient than others. There are some banks that are able to get you to the front of the line. There are some banks that are able to get it into the system. Maybe they have the API. Maybe they've got the electronic filing system. There are banks that are just more efficient right now. And so the obvious thing is to hedge your bet and apply for multiple institutions. Now, at the same time, the SBA is training their people. And I know this because I have SBA contacts. The SBA is training their people, watch out for potential red flags or fraud. They're telling you, if you're seeing multiple applications from the same person, watch out for that. That is a red flag. So you guys can see there's a major conflict. You've got one set of government officials saying, go ahead and apply multiple locations. You've got SBA training their people, watch out, it's a fraud thing. My recommendation is, if you choose to apply at multiple financial institutions, if you choose to apply at multiple institutions, make sure that once you are approved, you pull your applications from the other place and document that. Make sure you're keeping your emails where you've asked them to pull it. You're documenting the conversations, you're documenting the chat, take pictures with your iPhone, whatever you do, document that you have asked that they pull your application. And whatever you do, do not accept two loans. Do not accept two loans, no matter what you do. So definitely that's what I would say I would recommend if you do choose to apply for multiple institutions. The other recommendation that I have for you guys is that loan forgiveness is very, very tricky. Very, very tricky. Now, in the act for the PPP loan, you must spend 75% of the loan proceeds on payroll. You must spend 75% of your loan proceeds on payroll. And so that means that if you have in a business where you have already laid off your employees, it is going to be tough getting them back. It's going to be tough getting them back. Let's be realistic about that. You're getting a loan, probably for a large dollar amount. If you've already laid people off, it is going to be tough getting them back. And the reason why is, in addition to the traditional unemployment benefits that they're used to getting, they're also getting an additional $600 a week. And for the average American out there, that's equivalent to their weekly salary, if not better. So imagine being an average worker that just got their feelings hurt, just got laid off, furloughed, right? And now you're getting unemployment and you're getting $600 extra. You're getting your salary to do nothing. Who wouldn't choose to garden, right? Who wouldn't choose to garden and go to work? Okay. So if you're in a restaurant and you've already laid people off and you're applying for this PPP loan, it is going to be very difficult for you to reach your 75% goal. So keep that in mind. Also, the loan is set up that it gives you 2.5 times your payroll costs for a month, 2.5 times. So that means that already, if you're required to spend, let's do the math, 75%. If you're required to spend 75% of the loan on payroll, but you're getting 2.5 times, right? That's going to be hard for you to get. So think about that in terms of that. And not only that, if you are implementing Profit First, and let's say you said, I restructured my organization at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, before COVID-19 hit, and I laid off people and I restructured my organization to be more efficient. When they're figuring out your average payroll cost, they are taking it for the whole year of 2019. So even though your payroll might have been heavy on January 2019 and it's a lot less, they're taking the average. So if your payroll expense today is a lot less than what it was a year ago, again, it's going to be hard for you to have your loan forgiven. And so I would say be very, very careful about spending that money, because you may, and if you've already laid people off, I would say don't even take the money, because it might be hard to do that. Now, I know people say that it's a 1% interest rate, there's, that I can turn it in anytime, but again, this is debt. And most people have a hard time managing debt and paying it back. But I will tell you this, when you have to repay this debt, these are not small debts. If you've got a $70,000 loan, you're going to be looking at close to $5,000 a month that you're going to pay back. If you've got a $10,000 amount to pay back, it could be $20,000. Imagine you have a multi-million-dollar loan, like you're a staffing agency. It's going to be very difficult to pay back. So you have to think, is this money even worth taking out? Because will I have to pay it back? And if you let your employees go already, you will have a hard time potentially bringing them back. And so definitely protect yourself from that standpoint. And then also just remember, the debt is very restricted in terms of what you can spend it on, very restricted. So it has to be for 75% must go to payroll, and payroll can include employer benefits, include interest, it can include vacation pay, but it cannot include employer portion of federal taxes. That other 25%, you can use it for rent, you can use it for your mortgage interest, you can use it for utilities. If you have money left over from that, I am predicting they may ask for that back. So definitely make sure you are tracking your finances, make sure you're tracking your expenses for the loan, make sure that you're in a position that after 8 weeks, if you've not fulfilled your covenant, you can give that money back, because we, as a Profit First, we don't want you guys having debt. Also, after that 8 weeks passes, and you are then able to apply for forgiveness, do it quickly. Apply for forgiveness quickly, because remember, the provisions are changing, the rules are changing. The quicker you have it forgiven, the better off you're going to be. So definitely apply for forgiveness as soon as you can to be free and clear of this loan. I think Blanca asked me a question, can I pay myself? Yes, you can be included in that payroll. Just make sure that you cap your annual salary at $100,000. So when you annualize that and you're figuring out your payroll, that you're capped under $100,000. But yes, you can definitely pay yourself, Blanca, for that. The other thing is also, just keep in mind, one of the questions that we've been frequently getting from business owners is, can I count my contractors as employees? That's a common question that we're getting. And my answer to that is no, you cannot count your contractors as employees. Now, your contractors can go ahead and apply for a PPP loan themselves. They can turn in their 1040, their personal tax return, and they can get it that way. But they cannot go ahead and apply on their own. Or not, sorry, they can apply on their own, but you cannot apply for them under your company. So they can apply on their own, but you cannot apply for them. Now, keep in mind, if you put in your payroll numbers to your bank, because it was a self-certified payroll, right? And if you've included those contractors in your payroll already, and there's a 75% clause, you're probably not going to make it if it includes contractor payroll. So definitely be reserving to take that money and turn it back around for that. So again, my recommendation here is encourage your contractors to apply on their own at their local community banks. So those are just some of the things that we are seeing from the PPP loan side. At this point, I welcome any questions that you might have. And I don't see any more questions. And then if I've missed any, or Crystal, if you can let me know, and I will make sure I address those. So I hope that this was extremely helpful for you guys in terms of strategizing. Just make sure you act quickly, because again, we are limited by time. We are limited by financial resources for this money, and when it's gone, it's gone. It's first come, first serve. We will be here back next week. We're going to have different training sessions up until our masterclass. We definitely want to eradicate entrepreneur poverty. So if you have any friends that are business owners, we want to make sure that we eradicate entrepreneur poverty. Please invite them to the group. Please let your concierge know also, because we will be having a contest where we will be awarding a $50 gift certificate to the one that invites the most friends and business owners to our group, because we are eradicating entrepreneur poverty. So I will go ahead and sign off for now. It was really wonderful seeing you guys again. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week on our training. And definitely invite your friends to our masterclass because we are eradicating entrepreneur poverty. And it was great to see you guys again. Bye, everyone.